Hi everybody, what's happening? Imari here. Quick note, I just want to let you know, if you don't know what Yes And, first of all, you're missing out because Yes And for me is a revolutionary approach to conversations. Yes And is an online show I do with the good people over at WeDeepen. We bring together people who are on all ends of the spectrum when it comes to a certain question. When those questions have been like, is it wrong to call yourself God? The question that we got coming up is, are gender roles necessary to keep society intact? We always have these quote unquote controversial questions, but we move through these conversations in a way that feels constructive, it feels enlightening, and more than anything, it feels entertaining. So if you are interested in those kind of conversations, definitely join us for the next one. It's going to be the last Wednesday afternoon, evening of January. And like I said, we're going to be talking about, are gender roles necessary to keep society intact? And this time we have something special. Me and Christina over at WeDeepen, we interviewed John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, one of the most influential relationship books of all time. And I asked him this question, are gender roles necessary to keep society intact? He had some interesting things to say, and I'm very curious to hear what you all have to say about what he said, and to just get this conversation moving, get this conversation started. So let's make it happen. I will see you then, last Wednesday in January. Bye. I'm very passionate and very curious about the human experience. I feel like that's something that we're all doing, but we're not talking about it enough. And I think a lot of times it becomes a very binary conversation when we do talk about it sometimes. And it's very much like, you're wrong and I'm right because for some reason I have a better opinion than you. So I created the Yes And show with the premise to basically say, like, what would it look like if conversations built upon different perspectives rather than one perspective had to be right? So I can say, yes, I agree with you, John, and have you considered this, 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 and this, and this, right? That way it can be constructive rather than destructive. I know it's a revolutionary concept in 2020.
What happens if you agree with somebody?
What happens if we agree with somebody? We might actually get along. Who knows? But fingers crossed.
Well, no, you should be like, I think your message is you can get along if it's yes and is really, when we talk about dating, I think that's the magic word. And I love to be able to bring that in. What makes us attracted to people is different points of view. Yes and is like the magic phrase people should be looking for in the dating experience. I love that because your soulmate never thinks just like you. There's a part of them that is like you that you're not yet ready to understand, but by loving them, you embrace it in them, you begin to embrace it in you. And then you have that, what's the phrase again? Yes and.
Yeah.
Yes and.
So
instead yes but, it's a different from yes but to yes and. I love it.
So what I'm hearing you say with that premise is that essentially this relationship, love, dating thing that we do is meant to be a growth and expansion container. It's meant to be like, cool, I want you to challenge me. I know you have different opinions than me. How will that let me grow as a person? Would you say you agree with that?
Yes and.
See, he gets it. He's
got it. So I see we're recording. Should we officially start?
Yeah, sure. We can jump in right now. Nothing too formal. You understand the premise of the show. My name is Imari Anderson. Super excited to have you, Mr. John Gray. I'm excited that I feel like me and you come from very different worlds, and I'm excited to see what our yes and is, how we agree on this relationship, dating, love thing that human beings do. I'm very excited to hear some of your expertise. I'm very excited to hear some of your thoughts. And tonight's episode is really focused on one question that I'm sure we'll expand, but the question that we're focused on is, are gender roles necessary in order to keep society intact? And you as a relationship coach or somebody as an author in relationship space, I would even say, like, are gender roles necessary in relationship? So I'll just open up the floor and see what you have to say about that.
Oh, our gender roles. People know me as the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I've got my children over here, another 27 books. But the most recent book on relationships is called Beyond Mars and Venus. So that really is a yes and book. Men Are From Mars talks about how traditional, it really describes more traditional roles that men and women have had when you have babies and the guy's making the money and the woman's staying home and you don't really have birth control. That's sort of the way the world used to be in many places. So I said yes to that. And why are people not able to experience great sex for a lifetime? Why are people missing that feeling of being in love that they had when they fell in love? What is this whole idea about creating lasting romance? And the reality is, if you go back to those traditional relationships where the man's the provider, pretty much a strict role to a great extent, some variation. Woman's a homemaker. There was no real lasting romance. Now, women have said to me, where are all those romantic guys? They all disappeared. And I go, you mean like Romeo and Juliet? And they go, yeah, yeah. I said, Romeo and Juliet died the day after they got married. And what people have known as a general concept throughout history is romance doesn't last. Women, you go for a guy with a good job, and then you go for a woman with wide hips so that she can bear your babies, and strong thighs. So there were, basically practical aspects of life, because that romantic feeling, which many people think is not practical, could not last a lifetime. And that's true. And I came along and said, you know what? I'm married 34 years. I had the best sex of my life, and it's only gotten better. How did I do that? Well, that's by learning that, yeah, men and women in traditional roles has been a part of our survival as a species. That's what it's all about. And how can you survive as a species if you don't have a man protecting you and you're pregnant? If you're a woman and you're living in the jungle, you need a guy who's willing to do dirty, dangerous, difficult. You need to know a guy who's willing to face danger for you, because you're carrying his baby and you're pregnant, and it's a village of babies. So women learn to have a support system that wasn't just a man. They had a community. It takes a community to raise a baby, right? So that's the old fashioned way. And then the men would be out there in their teams, and they would hunt together, and they'd fight together, and they'd have campfires. You can see it now. All the women are around one campfire, the men are around the other one. And what's happening is they live in their separate worlds. And then, hey, guess what happens? Yes, and I grew up in the 60s. I was born in 1951. And when I was a teenager, the Beatles came along. I saw the Beatles, 13 years old, and the women were all having orgasms. Never had anything like that happen, to my knowledge. A whole stadium of women screaming. I remember saying, I'm not going to stand up and scream. We saw it on Ed Sullivan's show. It was like some kind of Beatlemania is what it was. Literally, women were fainting. They were hysterical. They were screaming. And as soon as the Beatles came out, I started screaming. Everybody was screaming. This was like a huge phenomena. And then I wanted to grow my hair out. I became a hippie. I got kicked out of school until I cut my hair. I had a belt buckle. I had bell-bottom pants. I demonstrated for peace. I wouldn't go to Vietnam. What's that all about? I was a breakout person. I grew up in Houston, Texas. You didn't do that kind of stuff. So what was happening? The way I define what was happening is I was expanding my consciousness to where I was not just a man, but I was also a woman. I believe that everybody has male and female qualities inside of them. And even when I wrote Men Are From Mars, I knew that was the case. But what I saw is, regardless of how much masculine energy you express, how much feminine energy you express, when you're in a partnership, which is more traditional partnership where you have children, see, everything changes. A lot of people read Men Are From Mars and women say, oh, I feel like I'm from Mars. I go, yeah, you probably are. Wait till you get married and have kids, you're pregnant. Okay. Suddenly a dynamic happens then where when you're dependent on the man while you're pregnant, you're very vulnerable at that time. Estrogen levels need to go up, progesterone levels go up. You start feeling very different, and you need to be treated very differently. And that's what I wrote about in Men Are From Mars. And that's why it promised, in many cases, it came true. If you're in a more traditional relationship, if men, you learn to do the things I suggest, and women, you learn to communicate in the ways I suggest, you can actually create lasting passion. And that's what I did. And I've got millions of people that had that experience. Now, did everybody have that experience? No, because quite often they had their own life journey, and passion and romance wasn't their big thing in a heterosexual relationship. So I speak to only a group. It just happens to be that group is huge. And yes, and some people don't want to be in relationships. Some people want to be celibate. Some people want to masturbate on porn every day. This is their wish. That's what they want to do. I personally, when I was age 18, after becoming a hippie and getting out of Vietnam, and then getting high at Woodstock, I crashed. And the Beatles said that, you could get high without having to take drugs, because they had met Maharishi. And I said, I want to meet Maharishi because I crashed after Woodstock. So I became a celibate monk for 9 years. I didn't masturbate for 9 years. I was sexually active in my teenage years. I love sex. I teach sex. I have a PhD in sexual counseling. I think sex is the greatest thing. Is it for everybody? No. Yes, and but for me, and so I think it's fabulous. But what I did is I also learned to master sexual energy and not be dependent on too much sexual energy. See, some people are addicted to masturbation, addicted to porn. And, that's their choice. You could be addicted to cocaine. That's your choice. Yes, and you come down. What I learned is part of having great sex for 34 years with my wife is I don't masturbate ever. Because now we have the research to show it. Not that it's bad. I did it as a teenager. No problem. As a monk, I didn't do it. And I was able to meditate for 10, 15 hours a day. I still this morning meditate 5 hours because that semen is a juice for your brain. Now, if you want to spend it all, waste it, that's fine. You can also use it. And it's the love juice. It's the brain power. I'll share something really fun with you just because you're a young guy. I was celibate for 9 years, never masturbating, never releasing semen for 9 years. My perspiration smells like semen. It's the life force. It's what creates life. And what's happening is what I learned to do is realize, I studied Tantra. I taught Tantra classes in 1978. When I stopped being celibate, I studied sex and taught people spiritual sex. And I studied 10 years in China. I studied Taoism, sex. And all these ancient systems all talk about men learning to have orgasms without ejaculating. Mm-hmm. So I have sex every day. I have sex for hours. I love it when I have time. Sometimes I just meditate. Sometimes I have sex. A lot of guys would like to have that. And a lot of guys go, I'd rather just masturbate. That's fine. But what happens is if you actually have sex with somebody you love, that's why I'm all into monogamy. Now, not everybody has to be monogamous. I'm totally into monogamy. Men say, I want my freedom. I say, lusting after women who don't want you is freedom. Running after sex all the time is freedom. When you got the best sex in the world at home, that's freedom. When you don't desire anybody else. But here's how nature put it in our body. I like talking about biology because you can look under a microscope and you see it. You can do a blood test and test it. If I masturbate, certain hormones get produced afterwards. One of those hormones, my testosterone, goes down 50%. If I have sex online, I've had sex with a one-night stand. That's fun. That's great. I've done it. Oh my God. After being a celibate monk, I must have had like a lot of women, one after another after another. I love sex. If you haven't had sex in 9 years, you really want to study it a lot. It becomes very, very amazing. So I learned about it. I studied it. And then I studied different cultures about it and so forth. What's the big deal here? I optimize. I'm an optimizer. Some people don't, but I optimize. And what happens, an Italian study showed that if you have sex with a woman you love, who loves you, that's the key. You're in a relationship, you know her, she knows you, you've had time together. That's an intimate relationship. And you ejaculate, your body also makes another hormone, prolactin. If you have sex alone or with a woman you don't know or care about, you don't make prolactin. What is the function of prolactin in a man? Prolactin frees you from the addiction to sex. Prolactin frees you from hunger, lust. You're checking that skirt out. You're checking those breasts out. You're checking that girl out. Could she be the one? Could I have sex with her? Does she want me? All that stuff. The brain's just going after that because you don't have it. It's kind of like, let's say I remember when I was driving a little Volkswagen and I'd see a Mercedes go by. Oh, I want that car. I want that car. What kind of Mercedes is that? I even moved out of LA because I was just sick of feeling like I wanted a Mercedes. In Beverly Hills, I used to live. It's like a car would go by. I'm always looking at what kind of Mercedes was it? What number was it? Lusting after that. Who wants to lust after all that stuff? Why not have it at home? Well, when you have sex with a woman you love, if you know how to have sex, okay, that's another thing. Then your body makes prolactin and you don't have an addiction. Your body literally, you can measure this in your body when you make prolactin. Your testosterone levels go down 50%, just like any other guy. They'll stay down for 6 to 7 days. And then on the 7th day, your testosterone levels will double. Now, why do I want my testosterone levels to double? Well, first of all, most guys at 35, their testosterone levels are going down. I'm 70 years old practically. Mine are 50% higher than I was a young man.
Wow.
I have sex almost every day because I'm not ejaculating. See, this is all new stuff. Yes, you can have standard sex, but you can have, yes, but, yes, and, not yes, but yes, and you can have as much sex as you want without losing your energy, feeling that sexual passion towards your partner. And I tell you, when you're having great sex, the relationship outside the bedroom is so much easier. If I can, I like to tell you a funny story. So
Go for it.
All right. So my wife is, I'm a therapist, right? And so long before I wrote Men Are from Mars, I've been doing counseling 8 hours a day on women. Okay. I'm learning about women. I think they're from another planet, but I figured them out to a certain extent. You never fully figure them out. So, or anybody, but for me, trying to understand women was like another language. So
I get it.
what I learned is I tried something. I said, women were always complaining. That's what you come to a therapist for, is complain. So they would, and by the way, 90% of the people who go to therapists are women. Because if you talk about how you feel without trying to solve problems, but just talking and sharing, it increases estrogen. And for women, in order to regulate stress, they need 10 times more estrogen than men. This is, if a woman has a man's level of estrogen, her stress levels go up. When her stress level goes up, she can't feel loving. She can't feel happy. For a man, we need 10 times more testosterone than a woman. Otherwise, we're irritable, grumpy, passive, angry, passive, addiction. All that stuff is low testosterone and high estrogen. Most people don't know this. This is simple science. We thought that, aggressive man is testosterone. No, Kung Fu master who never gets upset. You know those Kung Fu movies?
Yeah.
They're always like cool, calm, collected. The good guy never gets angry. He's like really cool. You never attack. You always protect. That's it. Your emotions don't control you. When you get emotional as a man, whether it be happiness or whether it be anger, estrogen levels are going up. But the difference is that if you're happy and you're a man and loving, if you're a man, your estrogen's going up, but your testosterone is very high as well. Whenever a man is angry, his testosterone is low. Think about low testosterone as low confidence. Cool, calm, and collected. That's masculine energy. Now, a woman can be cool, calm, and collected. She's on her male side. Nothing wrong with that. It's just what I find in my research. Well, not my research. This is all standard research. When a woman's producing cortisol levels, that's stress hormones, her estrogen levels are always low. And when she has an orgasm, her estrogen levels are 20 times higher than a man's, 20 times higher, 10 times for happiness. So that's a nice thing. That changed my attitude completely. I realized her job is to have 10 times more estrogen to be happy. My job is to take her from 10 times to 20 times. That translates into, I'm not responsible for her happiness, and therefore I'm not responsible for her unhappiness. Although I can make it worse for her if I don't know how to treat her with respect.
Definitely. Yeah.
But her job is to get up to 10 times more than me. And then my job is to take her all the way up. And there you bond at a higher level. And your testosterone levels for a man in sex shoot up really high. Her estrogen levels shoot up really high. And then that all goes away. Why does that go away? It didn't go away for me and the people I teach, because if you have sex more than twice, if you have sex, ejaculate, it's going to go down. That's why men on on Sunday, we're sitting around doing nothing, watching sports, being passive, doing nothing. We have no energy. Life force is kaput. we need to relax in order to rebuild. You got to rebuild the juice, and then it starts building up. But if we don't have enough prolactin, then we start craving sex too soon. And people might say, why? Why on an evolutionary, if there's like this amazing intelligence that digests our food and makes our brain work, this huge evolutionary creature that we are, so many things we have no control over. Like I have my father's nose, I have my mother's eyes, I look just like my dad in height. I all got that from them. Everything we get from them, your programming, every kind of automatic negative thought, automatic reaction, addiction, all that stuff programmed into us. The only way we can have lasting passion, because they didn't, is to change our programming. And you can only change your programming biologically. We know that if you have a stress hormone's being produced, blood flow stops to the front part of your brain. In the front part of your brain, that's where you can self-reflect and go, I'm pissed off, but talking about this is not going to help anything. When did yelling ever help anybody? When did arguing and fighting ever help anybody? So I can go, oh, I need to stop talking. So anyway, as a therapist, women were complaining about their husbands. They always would say, he never listens to me. He never listens to me. And a man could say, well, you're not listening to me. And now you have an argument. So what do I do about this? So I was basically listening to women in the counseling room. And after a while, they say, why are you such a good listener? And my husband doesn't listen. And I said, well, there's 3 reasons. One, I only listen to your complaints for an hour once a week. Not every day. Okay. I'm not going home to you. So that's 1. 2 is when you're complaining, and this is really the most important, you never complain about me. You're complaining about your husband and your life. So I don't get defensive. Anybody gets defensive when you complain about them. We're the monkey brain, this automatic brain, it's about being right and being survival. Got to defend. I got to be right. And certainly everybody says, wouldn't you rather love than be right? But then they all get angry and start blaming again.
Fight. Yeah.
So this is automatic reactions in the brain. But if you're here, what you can do is you can reflect and go, oh, what could I do differently right now? And that's what I'm going to get into in a moment. But the third thing I told these women, one is only an hour a week. The other one is that you're complaining, but not about me. So I can be very empathetic. All your friends are empathetic because you're not complaining about them. Why does my husband not want to listen to me? Well, what are you saying? Are you blaming him? Nobody wants to listen to blame. And the third thing, what is the third thing? I try to remember now. She only an hour. Oh, the third one is the other reason I listen so well is you pay me. What when a man's listening to you, what's he getting out of it?
What's he getting out of it?
What's in it for him? And of course, if he understood that women pay a lot of money to have somebody listen, that's paying me a lot of money, and after they start feeling happy, I won't even let them come to me. They get addicted to me. I said, no, you don't have enough problems for me. Go. It's learning, but I taught them how to communicate so their husbands would listen. See, that nobody ever had. Monkeys aren't taught that. People don't know that. How do you communicate to a man so he never feels blamed? If he feels blamed, his testosterone goes down. If you communicate without blame, and that's a whole new science. But anyway, I was going to tell you a funny story. So I'm doing this thing. I'm listening to these women. I'm becoming very clear. I'm developing these Mars Venus ideas that women often need to just talk. Don't interrupt with solutions. Sometimes all she needs to do is talk, and then she'll go from feeling negative to positive. I didn't know why then, by the way. Now I know if a woman can talk without trying to solve a problem, estrogen levels go higher, and estrogen lowers her stress levels. That's not always the case, because sometimes when women talk, they're trying to change you. If they're trying to change you, they're trying to solve a problem. Then they're producing testosterone. They're making male hormones. But if they're actually just sharing, that's different from complaining. Sharing is, I'm just telling you this because I want to be close. I want you to experience a shared experience, as opposed to I'm trying to change you. If we could understand, love is never about changing someone. But anyway, so I'm learning, okay, I'm going to practice this with my wife. I'm going to ask her a lot of questions, and I'll throw in what those questions are right here for all the guys listening. because you don't know what to do. Women start to talk. We're like firemen. There's a fire. We want to put it out. We want to say, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We minimize. Let's forget it. Let's go have sex. Can't we just be happy now? Why do you need to talk about this? What's going on? So we don't know what to do because nobody's ever taught us these advanced skills. Because you see, the more a woman's on her male side, independent, making money, doing jobs that men traditionally did, she's making male hormones. What she needs most now is to come back to her female hormones. So women need this more than ever. They didn't need it so much. My mother didn't care if my dad listened. She just cared if he had a good job and he didn't make a big mess at home, you know? But see, women, when they're way on their male side, they need romance. They need communication. They need attention. They need affection. They need so much more today that if they're way on their male side, how to help her come back to her female side, not all the time, just for a little while. That's called romance. That's called good communication. So anyway, I'm saying to my wife, the magic phrases, here they are. There's $1 million phrases. Took me a long time to figure this out. Here it goes. She's talking. She pauses. You want to make a comment, right? You want to say, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, okay, I'll handle that. Okay, I remember that. You want to give some kind of fix-it solution. Instead, what you do at that time is you say, right when you want to say something, don't say it. Instead, ask a question. Help me understand that better. Then she talks, oh, okay, I'm happy to help you. And then you say, well, tell me more about that. And then she tells you more about that. You might go back to, well, help me understand that. Or you might then go, well, tell me more. You do the opposite because what you've been doing hasn't worked, right? So this is the opposite. Maybe it will work. So help me understand that better. Tell me more. What else? And occasionally you might say back, so what you're upset about is this and this and this. And you do it cool, calm, and collected. You might be upset, but you push that to the side. So I said, I'm going to do this with my wife. I've been doing it with all these people who are paying me. So I'm going to try it with Bonnie. So she was upset about some things. And I said, well, tell me more. Well, what else? Well, help me understand that better. Is that sure? You mean you feel this and this and this? She goes, yeah. I said, oh, now inside of me, I'm not like this loving person that can just hear criticism and complaining and whatever. I'm like this guy who says, all right, I'm just going to put all that off to the side. I'm going to put it off to the side because men can do that easier than women, by the way. Women can learn to do it, but men can just put it to the side, kind of like in the courtroom where you got to sit there and I'm the defensive attorney. I smile, but I'm making notes and I've got all my arguments to make the prosecutor wrong. So you're ready for that. So I'm sitting there being a good listener, saying this and this. So now I'm ready. And I literally inside of me, she might have had 30 complaints about her life and me and everything. I had 30 complaints back. It's like ping pong. That's what couples do. You got a complaint. I got a complaint. You got a complaint. I got a complaint. You didn't do that, but you didn't do that. Well, you said this, but you said that. You know, we're like children, mindless people. So I've got my whole defensive argument here and I am so angry inside, but I'm not showing it, but I'm pissed off. I'm mad. I'm literally 50 minutes of seem like negativity. I'm thinking, how can she keep going on? But I thought, okay, let's just do this experiment. So then after that, I said very politely to her, I said, so Bonnie, is there anything else you want to say? She says, no. I said, do you feel like I really heard you? She goes, yes, I feel like you really heard me. And I said, well, would this be a good time to tell you how I feel since I've been listening to how you feel? And she says, no. In my mind, I'm thinking, what? I just listened for an hour and now you won't listen to me? You know, this whole ping pong thing. So I said, would this be a good time? And she said, no. And I said, oh, when would be a good time? And she said, I don't know. I just want to bask in the sunshine of your love. Blew my mind. How could this woman who had all these complaints suddenly feel basking in the sunshine of my love? But this was the pure evidence of what I wrote in my book. Sometimes all a woman needs to do is get it out and then she feels happy again. Well, I said, well, you let me know when. And she says, I will. And then she said, right now, I want to make your favorite dinner. So she cooked, I'm going to make chicken and mashed potatoes and green peas. And I thought, Now she wants to do something nice for me. And I have to tell you my experience. I'm still rather angry. Okay. I'm just kind of in a sense of bewilderment at that point. But I look over her at the kitchen and she was making dinner and she was singing. I thought it was like a Disney movie and there were little bluebirds chirping around Snow White. Okay. So this was like literally, I couldn't understand it. And normally she doesn't sing. I love when she sings. So I thought, wow, that's amazing. I didn't do anything and say anything and she feels so happy. How could she feel that way? And maybe my anger went down to 20% less, because whenever a man feels successful, his testosterone starts to rise. And if his estrogen's too high, it will start to go down. Okay. So let's say I'm 80% feeling good. Then my kids, we're having dinner together. Just being around my kids now, I'm sort of distracted. I'm feeling good about my kids. My anger is starting to go down more and more. So let's call it around 50%, maybe 60%. I'm still grumpy when I look at her. And so I go to bed early, turn out the light. She comes in, she turns the light on, puts it on dim. She goes over to her drawer where she has sexy clothes. Now she's undressing and putting on her sexy clothes. I'm like looking out of the side of my mind. I say, how could she want to have sex with me? She just complained about me. I'm going to go to sleep. So I'm just like, I curled over and she's in this sexy little outfit. She curls up next to me, doesn't say anything. Then her hand moves over to my thigh. And it's all over at that point. We make love. And that's different between men and women for sure. And we make love. We make love and I go to sleep. And the next morning, she cuddles up next to me. I feel her. She whispers in my ear. She says, are you awake? I said, yes. She says, you said you had something to share with me. If you want, this would be a good time. And I thought back, I have nothing to share. But see, having had a successful sexual experience, my feeling of being loved was fulfilled. So I didn't have any complaints. But from that day on, I realized that all I needed when I feel like, oh, I have to argue and fight, it's my defensiveness because I have low testosterone. All I need is something to bump my testosterone up. Now, in my case, fortunately, I can make love quite well. So my testosterone went very high. Her estrogen went very high. And so I felt very loved. And so that all those complaints disappear inside of a man when he's getting the love he needs. And we don't realize that as men. We don't know that what we need is love. See, women walk around, most women, we're talking generalization here now. Most women walk around going, I need love. You can see that in the bookstores. Okay. 90% of the relationship books are bought by women. So these are some sort of big statistics. Now, certainly some men do. I read them all. I got tons of relationship books. But it's not like men don't care about relationships. You can look in the finance section of the store and you'll see men are buying those books more. How to be successful, how to make money, how to understand the stock market, all that kind of stuff. Because they know, at least in the traditional old world that we were talking about, if you can't make money, why is a woman going to love you? If you don't have a job, why is a woman going to love you? What do you got for her? And I'll tell you, a lot of these women today, I talk to them and they're single. They're very independent. I say, why aren't you married? They say, why would I want another child to take care of? And I have to explain to them, well, why are you unhappy? Why are you stressed? What are the symptoms of women when they don't feel they have support in their lives? Intimate support. But even just feeling all alone out there, I have to do it all myself. What are the symptoms of low estrogen, high testosterone? Feeling overwhelmed. I have no time. I have no energy. I'm exhausted. I have no support in my relationship. I have to do everything myself. And if my partner does do things, it's not good enough. And why would I want to be with a man? And I can't seem to fall in love. I meet nice men, but I can't fall in love. See, falling in love, actually, your estrogen levels have to double 20 times more than a man's. So this is why I'm saying it's so important. Let's embrace some science here. And then let's look at not roles that men and women have to play, but what activities stimulate testosterone and what activities stimulate more estrogen. So if by nature you're a woman and, being a stay-at-home mother, that's not your thing, and you want to run a big CEO company, great. Just make sure that you come home to a life that stimulates the hormones to balance the female hormones. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You know, you can go see a therapist every week. That would do it. You can go to yoga classes. Yoga classes are very popular because estrogen is produced when you feel dependent on someone or something, where you're following the guidance of someone. If you have a teacher, for example, estrogen's being produced. If you have a doctor, estrogen's being produced. That's why the medical community is always trying to hire me. How can we get the men to come in for their checkups? Because there's no additional payoff for us to go and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help. Okay. I need your help. It produces estrogen. I can do it myself, produces testosterone. And an integrated person today is someone who has freedom to access either side. But we don't yet have a culture that has trained us in our intimate relationships to use intimate relationships to find balance of both my male and female sides. I'll pause there.
That was great. Thank you so much. The biggest thought that I have to respond to that is,
yes,
I love that
and yes, and I love it.
I love when he says it. I love when he says that. So the biggest thing that, first of all, I really appreciate is the fact that we're bringing biology into the conversation, right? Because like I was telling Christina beforehand, I was like, okay, we know that we're in 2020 and everybody's very progressive and everybody's like, does one identify with, you know, certain gender roles, et cetera, et cetera. But what you're talking about is on a fundamental level, there is biology that we can't ignore,
yeah.
Right? And
yep.
I love that, because then what we're essentially saying is we are leaning towards this idea that like, yeah, gender, we're not going to be able to escape gender roles, because on a fundamental molecular level, some people, men, women, whatever, need certain things that others do not. Right?
Hey, rather than yes, and can I add something? Instead
yes,
of we don't need gender roles, but we need to understand gender differences, see, and gender hormones. Because roles, you know, you can be, and we can explore these new challenges. You could be a woman in the role of financial provider, and you could be a man in the role of homemaker, but you're still a man, and you still have to figure out how to get testosterone, and it doesn't get produced when you're with a bunch of babies all day. So, and she's over there making all this money, the pressure on money. Once women feel like they're the primary providers, they're very hard to have orgasms. At least the women I know who are either making more money than their husbands, they feel that pressure, very hard for them to have orgasm and sex, even be in the mood for sex. And, you know, as a therapist, what you hear, I'm a sex counselor as well. Why aren't you having sex? They always say, we're too tired. I go, you know, when you were falling in love and he was taking you out on dates and you were like getting to know each other and learning about each other, you always had energy for sex. There's never a time where you didn't have energy. You weren't too tired. And
you still had the same jobs. Yeah.
Anyway, so, I just wanted to say not the roles, because I think that the traditional gender roles are gone and we create our own roles in life, but we have to understand there's gender behaviors that stimulate gender specific hormones. And that's biology.
So what you're saying, if I was going to summarize, I would say that we're free to take on whatever role we want, right? Provider, protector, whatever. And at the same time, yes, and let's not ignore the biological differences and the biological needs of each gender. So either way, you're going to need to fill that need, whether it's an estrogen depletion, whether it's testosterone deficiency. At the end of the day, you can play whatever role you want. And that doesn't mean we have to disregard science completely. That's what I'm hearing you say.
And if you find yourself becoming stressed, you know, and what are the symptoms of common stress? Often for women, it's feeling not in the mood for sex, feeling overwhelmed, feeling hurried, feeling rushed. I don't have enough time for myself, no self-nurturing time. I'm too negative on my body. Another really, really big one is overeating. Boy, that's a big one for both. For women, it's a way to produce estrogen because their lifestyle isn't doing it. So they overeat, because whenever you're feeling dependent on something, I'm dependent on food to make me happy. oh, you get estrogen, but the problem is then you have the health problems of eating too much.
Everything comes with
Complaining is a big, for example, a big estrogen producer, but now you have the problem of turning your partner off. And it actually, and then when they're not listening to you, then your estrogen goes back down again. So a lot of things, men, they have low testosterone, just go online, have sex. I mean, go look at a bunch of naked women wanting to have sex with you. Your testosterone doubles temporarily, and then it shoots down even further. So there's a lot of things we can do to stimulate the feel good hormones, but can you sustain them? And so that's where we're talking about a relationship, or at least an awareness. Relationships is one solution. There's others. I mean, when I didn't have hormone tests, but when I was a monk, I was not in relationships, but oh my God, I never had any stress. I was in ecstasy almost all the time. I mean, how do you sit and meditate for 16 hours, 10 hours? It's only because it's so enjoyable. Most people are like, I'm fidgeting, my mind is whatever. But I was making huge testosterone and estrogen because I'm depending upon the divine energy of the universe. I experience the godliness in all of us as oneness. That's an experience of just a fusion of oneness and an ocean of love. Now, when you feel that, I'm dependent on that. But at the same time, what created my testosterone, and I'm not recommending this for everybody, but anytime you sacrifice, meaning you don't indulge yourself, but you do what is right. I'm not going to do what I feel like doing. I'm going to do what is right. That's a testosterone producer. Anytime you give up pleasure, for example, to achieve a goal, like a soldier saying, I'll give up my life to save my country. That's a huge testosterone builder. That's character. I'm going to go do this job. I don't like to do it, but that's the only job I can get. And it's going to make money so I can take care of my wife and children, or I can make the world a better place. Sacrifice for a noble cause. So as a monk, I used to sleep on the floor. I'd use my arm as a pillow instead of all the soft comforts. I ate a bowl of food a day. I still only eat one meal a day because that requires discipline. See, I know my tendency, I could be so much happy, I could enjoy. I go too far to my female side very easily. So to balance that, I have my meditation discipline. I have my disciplines of not too much comfort at other times. Men have to learn to toughen up. It's the opposite of what everybody's saying, boys, we need to get you to cry and everything. I'm not against emotions at all. It's just a properly handled emotions. Don't throw your negativity at someone. Don't make a decision when you're having anger or when you're feeling grief or when you're feeling fear. This is a time to nurture yourself. If you're a man, you don't depend on others to do that. You primarily learn how to do it for yourself. For women, you depend on others to do it, and you can do it for yourself as well. But always remember, healing for women is more about estrogen. Healing for men is more about testosterone. It doesn't mean you can't cry or feel. I mean, my wife died 2 years ago. I can burst into tears right now. All I have to do is think about her, and already tears are starting to flow. It's not like, I'm this man who works hard and everything, but I also have a beautiful female side. I had the most sweet, beautiful relationship I could ever imagine with her. And it's now almost 2.5 years. I've started a new one. I'm in love again. I can grow in love. But at the same time, I miss my wife terribly. So it's not like I'm saying men can't feel or cry. It's that men should not be needy and whiny and complaining. This just turns women off. And arguing back, we want to be a stable rock. And if she's sharing her feelings, if we get triggered, stop listening, because you're triggered. You're out of control. If you get angry, say, excuse me, I need some time to think about this and I'll be back. See, it's like we're not always supposed to be working everything out through talking. I can't tell you how many marriages are ruined by talking too much. We have to learn how to talk in a way that always comes across as loving and supportive. If your hormones are out of balance, you can't communicate at that time with someone that's upsetting you and have it be effective. We know in science, we have things called mirror cells in the brain.
Yeah, mirror neurons.
If you're mirror neurons, right? If you're upset with me, I get upset with you. It's monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
We're just like monkeys. That's what people have to get.
Yeah.
The only part of us is our brain is not like a monkey. It's right here in the front part of the brain. And
Prefrontal
if your
cortex.
hormones are out of balance, your cortisol levels will be elevated. blood flow stops to the front part of the brain. You have no hope. So the hope I give people with this new knowledge of hormones, if you're feeling any of these symptoms of stress, stop talking. If you're a man, go do something that makes testosterone for you. If you're a woman, go do something that makes estrogen for you. And I wrote a whole book called Beyond Mars and Venus. I have a whole website, marsvenus.com, teaching women how to make estrogen without depending on a man. For men, how to make testosterone without depending on sex. Then what you do is you get to the place where you're in balance, then sex makes you Superman. And for women, sex allows you to fall in love and become multi-orgasmic.
Beautiful.
Can I
Go ahead, Christina.
You've said so many good things here that I could comment on and
I want to hear them. I want to hear them.
One of the things that you had said something around not being responsible for her happiness, but there's a delight that you receive when she is happy. And so I had this theory a couple of years ago that I ran around with. My theory is that man's life purpose, and I know life purpose, strong word, but man's life purpose is to make women happy. And women are to wholeheartedly love men. Now, it doesn't mean that a man wants to be responsible for her happiness, but I have observed the joy and take sexuality out of it, because I have two gay uncles. And when I did present this theory to them, they said, well, what about us? And I said, well, I see the way that you treat my grandmother, your mother, and I see you operating in a sense of wanting her to be happy. And maybe if you could speak a little to that. Is that a theory that you're like, no, that, and even man's bodies are designed to make women happy.
Yes, that's it. That's it. I cannot, the highest level of happiness I can experience is orgasming with my wife, because you measure the biology. That's when a man's testosterone levels go to the highest level, and his estrogen at the same time goes to the highest level. Then what happens, his love is so great for her in that moment that his estrogen shoots up higher, and then he ejaculates. So for a man, it's how to maintain control. Control of your body is your testosterone. But that's the sex part. We'll put that to the side for now. It's a bit advanced for most people to learn how to have orgasms without ejaculating. That's later. You can learn to do that. I teach classes on that. It's very cool. But in the meantime, don't waste your seed by throwing it away, guys. All right. So the bottom line is, I've been a marriage counselor for 50 years. Now, when men want to get a divorce, almost every man will say the same thing. When I take them to the side, they're not arguing with their wife. I say, what's the bottom line here? Why do you want a divorce? He'll always say, John, no matter what I do, it's never enough to make her happy. And every woman, when I hear, I've never heard a woman say, I do this and this, and he's just not happy. No, she says, I do this and this and this, and he doesn't do this and this for me. I give, and I don't get back, which negates this whole spiritual idea that all you have to do is give and you'll be happy. No, men have to give and get, and women have to give because they've received. Give as a result of receiving. That is true appreciation. If you give to get, you're basically poisoning a man. I'll say it again. It's not love. If you give to someone to get something from them, you're on your male side. You're not on your female side. Now, having said all that, I take my wife to the movies and she likes the movie. I get a big rise in testosterone and feel really happy. Because see, my intent is for her to be happy. So if she's happy and fulfilled, I fulfilled her need, then my testosterone goes up because I'm successful. Men need to feel successful, that they can make a difference in a woman's life. Women, on the other hand, need to feel my husband is successful in providing for me what I need. But often that seems selfish. It's like women don't want to admit that they want this and this and this. So in their mind, they have to justify, I want more, so I give more. And then I can complain because I give so much and I don't get back. All complaints are based upon ultimately giving more to get, because you're not actually coming from love, although it feels loving. It does feel loving, but it's so conditional. It's such conditional love. And what we can do is get to that higher level. If we're responsible for our fulfillment, our hormones go into balance. Now we're talking about a new kind of relationship here, one where you have lasting passion. Remember that, never done before. We now have access to both the male and female side. So if a woman can balance herself in her own life, not depending on a man for her estrogen levels to go up, then she's on her male and female side, responsible for her happiness. Then a man suddenly has the power to take her higher. And when I made that point today, it was kind of a revelation for me, because I used to get really defensive when my wife was unhappy, because I felt on an intuitive and instinctive level, not intuitive, on an instinctive, reactive level, if she's not happy, then it's my fault. Okay. And then I would get defensive. And just this concept helped. It's not, there's a lot of things that help, but this one concept helped, which was, if I'm not responsible for her happiness and she's responsible for it, then if she's unhappy, I'm not responsible. But when you don't feel like you're being attacked, then you can think, how can I be helpful? But not attachment. It's her job, but I can always be helpful. And the real key is I can recognize how being helpful, quite often men make it worse. That's where I wrote Men Are From Mars and Beyond Mars and Venus, is pointing out to men, telling her, don't worry about it, honey. It's not going to help. Telling her that, well, you have a complaint, but I have complaints about you and I don't complain. Why do you have to complain? That doesn't help.
So if a lot of my work has begun in the relational space, male, female procreation, and now it's expanded out into society and community, and seeing there's a rise of, less percentage of the population is getting married. Now, dating apps is the way that people are connecting. We're in quarantine, so people are even more pulled apart from each other. If you take your studies of man and woman in romantic relationship and zoom out, and how, from a larger constructs, how this type of information can help to progress society, and how to keep us connected and intact and unify us as a culture, what connections do you make from in not even male-female friendship?
Okay, there's a lot in there. I have a lot of things I could say, but let me take out two things. One is, right now we're in this lockdown kind of situation. I think that this is a massive potential for resetting our ability to have better relationships. It's also in a double way. One, if you have the right knowledge, you can actually grow and love more. And if you don't have the right knowledge, you're going to suffer more, which may motivate you to realize you don't know what you're doing and you need help. Okay. Because usually people don't seek out help till they realize they failed. And it's so many people want divorces now, whatever. And so many awful fights are going on because we don't have breathing room. See, men and women are not designed, from my perspective, to be together all the time. Even our children need time apart from each other. Otherwise, they start getting upset with each other. Men need time to detach and find themselves. You see, when I'm with my wife makes me so happy, right? So I start getting more and more dependent on her for happiness. Then I'll start getting my buttons pushed because my estrogen's too high and I'll need to pull away. Pulling away is finding myself again. Men have an automatic tendency to pull back, at least traditional men. A lot of these feminized men, they have so much estrogen, they feel guilty pulling back because their mother said, oh, your dad's ignoring me and he left, he's not here and whatever. So a male doesn't have a role model teaching him that you don't have to be feeling loving all the time. But if you're angry, then you take time on your own to find your happiness. You don't depend on beer and pornography and sitting down watching football games as your primary source of feeling good. A little bit of all that, okay, fine. But primarily, men have to learn, I can make my testosterone. How do I make it on my own? That's the real juice. That's the real growth. And women can find, I depend on my partner, his love and support, romance, good communication. He's there for me. He loves me. I can depend on him. Yeah, but that's sickness if you're only depending on him. You have to learn how to depend on yourself in your reactions to other people, with your friendships, with your service to society, with your children, and with your own self-love, with your own taking time for yourself. So that's where I see a lot of women are weak and their ability to nurture themselves. And a lot of men are weak and they're depending too much externally on sex and other things for them to feel good, because that's, that's the estrogen production. And men need to back off whenever they're stressed to come back to testosterone production. And that's a whole new art. If you look at the whole, I'm the only person, I'm like yelling in the forest here with Men Are From Mars. I was yelling in the forest, hey, wait a second, we are men and women. There's real differences here. Wake up, wake up. The emperor has no clothes. This is an illusion. And now I'm looking at all the research on hormones. You look at hormone research, they're saying, oh, men at 35, your testosterone's going down. You need to take testosterone. No, you don't need to take it, make it. You grow in testosterone as you get older. You don't lose it. That's my experience. I'm talking how to do this stuff. So men don't have to lose their testosterone as they get older. Women don't have to lose their estrogen. Yes, women do have menopause. They don't have to have all those crazy symptoms that are very common today. At my website, I have certain herbs from Korea that will balance those hormones right away if you do the types of behaviors that are more traditional, where a woman can now start realizing, I don't have to do it all myself. I need to learn how to connect with my feminine energy and stimulate that estrogen. Yes, your ovaries don't make the estrogen anymore after menopause, during menopause, but your adrenal gland will make estrogen, as much estrogen as you need to keep being orgasmic woman capable of falling in love. But if your adrenal gland is exhausted by being too much on your male side, not enough on your female side, because you're one of these enlightened women who can be on both sides, what happens is your adrenal becomes exhausted. And now when it's time for your adrenal gland to make your estrogen, it can't do it. It's been making too much cortisol your life. So what you do is you do a recovery program, 3 months. There's research showing just 3 months of taking high doses of vitamin C, MSM, and L-taurine, maybe 4 times the normal doses that people would be taking for 3 months, and your adrenal gland will pump out that estrogen again. You'll be orgasmic, able to fall in love, as long as you retrace your life and realize how you went too far to the female side, to the male side. If you're a woman, come back to your female side. For men, bumping up your testosterone takes a little bit of time, but there's ways to do that as well. You need to kick the estrogen out of your body. At my website, there's something called Myomin, which is Chinese herbs that will kick the estrogen out of your body so that you can now start rebuilding your testosterone levels. There's Tongkat Ali, a natural herb from Indonesia that will knock up your testosterone levels as well. But it doesn't have testosterone. It gives your body the message you need to make testosterone. Right. One of the obstacles for men is when you eat non-organic foods, junk food, pesticides, those are called xenoestrogens, estrogens from the external world. If you eat McDonald's hamburgers, there's estrogen in that. So when men are exposed to cheap food, unfortunately, it's expensive. But when you get the cheap foods, for men, that xenoestrogen, these are toxins or actual estrogens they put in your milk and they put in your meat. That gets into your body and it binds with what's called estrogen receptor sites. And that lowers your testosterone. It sends a message to your brain, high estrogen, low testosterone. It's amazing. And for women, you get all that xenoestrogen in your body. Your brain gets the message, oh, I don't need to make estrogen, so I can go to my male side. So it actually makes you more masculine because of the environmental toxicity. So we're fighting a battle here, fighting a battle to come back to what our biology says is necessary. And at the same time, we want to explore our highest potential, which is to be both on your male and female side, to have literally ecstatic lovemaking. And not you're making love all the time, unless you learn the advanced techniques, then you are, but that's more advanced. But you know, what is making love? If we can talk about that, it's making love. It's elevating your love to a higher level. And then what happens is you radiate out your love to the world and it sucks it out of you over 6 days and you make it again. You build it back up. And anybody who doubts me, if you have a loving partner that you care about and so forth, try not having sex for 6 days, 7 days, and see what sex is like. It's the same thing as if food. I'm not going to eat any food today, for example. Tomorrow, food will taste fantastic. Because for me, part of having high testosterone is kicking out toxicity in my body. Because in a man's body, toxicity is registered as estrogen. The body thinks it's estrogen. And so it keeps the testosterone down. And testosterone does not mean aggression. It means kindness. It means cool, calm collectedness. It means wisdom. It's understanding. It's amazing. You know, we think of testosterone going down as you age. No, it can go up as you age.
I love that so much. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Christine, do you have anything to say?
I
Go
have
ahead.
one more thing. Yes, and.
Go for it. Yes, and.
We talked before, we talked about dating. In the dating scene, I mentioned it to you. I want to mention it now because this is one of the big issues right now. And we're talking about people are learning to meet each other, connect through Zoom, connect through video. That forces us to learn how to connect through talking rather than just jumping into bed right away.
Right,
Usually
right.
you start feeling uncomfortable, nothing to say. So let's kiss and let the monkey take over. Let the monkey take over instead of learning how to actually connect fully and freely in your mind, then in your heart. Then when you get to the body, it's spectacular because you feel, particularly the woman, it's spectacular because she feels seen and heard and connection through feelings. That opens her up to fully enjoy sex, which certainly opens a man up to go higher and higher. We're reciprocal, but it's chicken and the egg. Research actually shows when a man's testosterone levels double, he produces pheromones. That's a smell that actually raises a woman's estrogen. And research shows that when women's estrogen levels go high, then her own testosterone will balance out and she'll have strong desire for sex, stronger than a man. So that by her estrogen has to go really high, and then the testosterone shoots up to balance it. And so they find that when women have high estrogen, they feel more sexual attraction to men. When men have high testosterone, they feel more sexual attraction to loving a woman, to bonding with a woman, and his stamina in sex is going to be much greater than a phenomenon that's happening for a lot of men, which is this premature ejaculation thing. They just don't have enough of the hormones in order to keep the testosterone up. They're more on their female side, so their estrogen shoots up. And as I mentioned, when estrogen goes higher than your testosterone, you ejaculate. And unfortunately, there's so much masturbation going on today. It trains the brain to ejaculate faster and faster. We need to go the other direction. But I got sidetracked there because I'm looking over there at a guy. I want guys to know this. This is like so important. But the female side of it is when you're dating, this whole thing. Here's my I wrote a whole book, Mars, Venus on a Date. So a lot of ideas, but here's one idea we talked about, which was yes, and. It's learning to have a different point of view with the man that you're going out on a date with. And this can be for men as well, but I'm going to speak for a woman right now. Women, and sometimes men, are people pleasers. Okay, so the people pleaser, example of people pleaser, I'm 18 years old, I'm having a bunch of friends around, I want to be part of the group. They said, oh, did you see this movie, John? And I'm just meeting these people. And I went, yeah. And they, well, did you like it? Immediately I panic. It's more of a controversial movie. Did they like it? Did they not like it? I want to know what they think. And they'd say, yeah, I feel that way too. That's called people pleasing. And a lot of times on dates, we go into people pleasing. It's kind of like we're on a job interview. We want to be our best and say the right things. And what I recommend is just the opposite. Be completely transparent and look for ways where you can have a different point of view from the other person. And all you have to do is just be authentic, because really it's differences that attract. So you could talk about the election. You could talk about things that maybe anything that's even controversial, and practice expressing your authentic point of view without any tendency to change the other person's point of view. Yes. That's the key to this. It's yes, and. So a guy would say, oh yeah, I did this and this and that. Really? That's interesting. Well, why did you do that? Well, that makes sense. 3 magic phrases with men are, that makes sense. I can see that's a good idea. Oh, you're right about that. And then say, yes, and I have a different point of view. How can you have a different point of view without trying to change that person's point of view? And because they're not listening to this talk and they don't have these skills, you're going to have a different point of view and they're going to try to change your point of view. And without getting upset, you do it joyfully because you're practicing. Dating is practicing. You're practicing fending off someone trying to change you without getting upset. And you can do that easier when you're on the screen. It's easier than being in person, and certainly easier than if you're married. So this is a great time to meet people online and practice differences. And so when he tries to change you or she tries to change you, but we'll start about him trying to change you as a woman, you say, well, that makes sense. I get it. No, back off for a minute. I don't really need you to try to change me in any way. I think it's good to be different. That's a good point of view. And I just have a different point of view. Really, you don't have to, say anything about that. And you can also share things about your life, and he'll want to fix you. I told that's what men think is helpful. And you say, oh, no, you don't need to do that. I just need to talk and share. I'm enjoying talking to you so much. And what women have to practice while you're dating is never ask him so many questions. Women are like experts. They're like interviewing you the whole time, thinking, get him to talk more and he'll love me more. No, he'll love you less. He loves himself more if he's talking the whole time. Make sure you talk 2 to 3 times more than him. That's very, very important. Women have this whole idea that men don't want to listen to women. Well, we don't unless we get paid for it. And why you get paid for it is when you're talking, you say, this is really fun to talk to you. I appreciate you listening. Amazing. I can just sort of explore these ideas out loud. So see, and then when he disagrees or he wants to fix you, you say, oh, that makes sense. That's a good idea, but I just need to talk about it. I feel so good. I feel comfortable when I'm with you. And you train him to just learn something good. You use him to practice these new relationship skills. And men don't mind being used as long as we're appreciated. We'll do anything as long as we get appreciated. And why is appreciation so important? Women, you want to be appreciated. Magnify that 10 times. That's what men need. And what you need, although often you don't know what you need, is to be able to talk and express yourself transparent without having to hide who you are. Learn to be naked, then learn to be emotionally naked. And men, back off on dominating the emotional naked stuff. First, get her naked. You can share your feelings about stuff, but make sure she has felt safe and she's talking more and she's opening up more. Why? We have a biological difference. Women today, more than any time in history, need our help to experience the estrogen levels going up through communication. Now, women always needed the estrogen levels, but the way they got to those estrogen levels is living in a society that said, you can't get a job. You're pregnant. You depend on a man. So because women were sort of in this sort of culturally a place where there wasn't the freedom, there wasn't the economy, there wasn't the education, there was pregnancy, there were babies. When you go down, I go down to the rainforest and live in those little villages with the people. The women, they're all together. Nobody's feeling traumatized by the men. Women are pregnant. The other women, grandmothers all carrying the babies around, noises everywhere. The men are sharpening their tools. And the women are not feeling neglected. They're not feeling ignored. Oh my God. When I used to work in my house, I'd sit on the computer writing a book. My wife would feel ignored. So I had to get an office outside the home so that I was away from her so she didn't feel ignored. And this is like, one of the challenges of being in this stuck in your house is women kind of, if they see you and you're doing something, they start to get this feeling of I'm being ignored, I'm being neglected, he's not there for me, because men really need that time apart. If you think about where the passion was in the relationship, when you're dating, he goes home. He doesn't stay with you all the time. Everything changes when you live together. And then all your challenges become hugely exaggerated when you're stuck together all the time. So you have to create these zones. And I know our time is ending soon, but I want to give one I love practical stuff. Okay, here's another this is a practical game people can play for couples. This is for the couples when you're stuck together. Because men need to be able to pull away to bump up that testosterone. So here's something that can bump it up without having to pull away so much, although they still needs it. Just go for a drive in your car. That's my big thing. I just get in my car and go drive. It's such a good testosterone producer. It's cruising.
That's a good point.
Because when you drive a car, your life is actually in danger and you're protecting yourself by driving your car. Always go a little faster than the speed limit, give it a little edge to it so adrenaline gets produced. But basically, you're having to save your life at that time because really, whether we normalize driving, but more people die from car accidents than practically anything. It's one of the big killers. So you are in danger. You just don't feel it because you're cool, calm, and collected, but you have to stay focused. So that's a good testosterone producer. Exercise is a good testosterone producer. Meditation is a good testosterone producer. Anyway, I got distracted on this. And this game is a good testosterone producer for your relationship. It's called Genie in the Bottle. So the man is the genie in the bottle. Now the genie's all powerful. You got muscles, you can fly, you can do anything, right? That's Superman. That's high testosterone. So you're the genie in the bottle, and she has to rub the bottle, and she has to ask for help. Asking for help. So you get 3 wishes, but actually you get infinite wishes in a 20-minute period. This is like being in the 20 minutes. You can do it 10 minutes in the beginning, but you'll love it. And then you'll do 20 minutes. And during that time, she can't do anything for herself. She's dependent on you. And she has to ask. You won't do anything for her unless she makes a wish. So she says, honey, would you massage my feet? And she says, certainly, I'd be happy to. He responds like a maitre d' in a fancy restaurant, a first-class attendant at an airplane. Oh, Dr. Gray, we're so glad to see you back. We've got a special hors d'oeuvres for you, got a special place for you. You're just going to be so generous. And so even if you're grumpy at that point, just fake it. Doesn't matter. Your subconscious mind is going to be rewarded. So whatever she asks for, you remember in your mind, it's 20 minutes. And she can't complain or criticize you in any way. She's powerless, but she has to ask for what she'd like. That's the rules. Now, she might say, oh, honey, would you clear clean the kitchen and get rid of those plates in the sink and put them in the dishwasher? He said, of course, happy to do it. And now he's doing it and puts them in the dishwasher. And then she says, and she's not allowed to do this. She says, and doesn't it look nice? Will you try to remember to do that in the future? No, you can't go into the future. It's all like right now. He can fulfill your wishes and wants, and you always overdo it. Oh, thank you. This feels so good. And it could be just a foot massage. It can be, but I say expand out, have him feed you. You know, I used to do that in my, close this. I used to do that in my seminars during the lunch break. I'd have the men feeding the women. And it's very uncomfortable. You have to work on how to receive support, because see, women today, they're so independent. That's your male side. So practice coming back to your female side, generating those hormones in 20 minutes. Now you can also do this before bed. If you want to have sex that night, you could play this game. You can also sometimes reverse roles as well. There's no rule against it. It should just be more times where he's the genie and she's powerless. But, you know, we men have a female side too. So when she's more in balance, he can have fun and go over to his female side. And you can do this actually with your clothes off. A lot of things you can do with this. It's a fun thing to do. It's really becoming conscious of, we can be anything, but let's make sure our biological hormones are getting enough stimulation, and we can get that. One way to get that is through our relationships.
I love that. You don't have to buy any pills or capsules, and there you go. You can boost your hormones.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
Can I ask you one final thought or question for you, John? Is that the topic for Yes End on January 27th is, are gender roles necessary to keep society intact? Now, after having this conversation, I'm curious is if you were to rewrite that question that you think is important for communities and societies to be looking at and digging into, how would you write that question?
Well, I think it's a catchy question. My answer to it was, you know, really gender roles was too limiting. But what we need to have an understanding of gender differences if we want to continue growing as a society. Because what's happening today, in a short answer, and it's part of your question a minute ago, what's happening is people are not getting married. And they're not getting married. I counsel people all the time because they're not staying in love. They're losing the physical attraction. See, you don't marry somebody unless there's physical attraction, right? I mean, whether people like say we don't talk about sex, but the reality is sex is what it's all about. A long time ago, men would marry just to have sex, okay? So the only way you can get sex was to get married, so I'll pay the price I'll give you everything just so I can have sex. All right. And women want to feel like sex is like your big prize. I'm not going to give you sex until you pledge your life to me. And there's some practicalities in all of that as well. But we're outgrown that. We're not dependent for the society to grow for women to feel safe to make babies. Now you can make babies without men. So, but what we need as a society is something much, much more than just the physical reality of these traditional roles. We need to understand how to support the biology of our unique gender and be able to provide that so we can sustain the attraction. Because if you can sustain attraction, people get married. If people get married, then babies are born and mom and dad are at home. I wrote a whole book. You can see one of my books back there called The Boy Crisis. 52% of boys in America don't know their fathers. This is a calamity. But all the shooters in America, yeah, they've got their rifles, but really they didn't have fathers. None of them had fathers. Men need fathers. A mother can't do it alone. And if she doesn't have a husband to raise that child with, she needs to get one. Or she needs to have a boyfriend. She needs to feel, I can trust a man. How can a little boy grow up with a mother? You're dependent on her love, and she can't trust a man. I can't grow into being a man. I can't easily produce those male hormones. I need mentors. I need help. But ideally, it should be growing up. It takes a man and a woman to make a baby. It takes a man and a woman to raise a child. And that's breaking up today. And while we can say, oh, there's this problem and this problem and this problem, I've never met a couple who wanted a divorce, a couple times, who had great sex. If you have great sex, you stay bonded. Sex is making love. You can't sustain feeling love for your partner. In the traditional roles, if we look at traditional roles, men express their love by being responsible for the family, but they didn't necessarily feel love. They did what was right, what society told them what was right. And then while they're having sex, sometimes they might feel that love, but they don't feel love. I know men that have written books on relationships and they say love is not a feeling. Absolutely, love is a feeling. And they say that because they never felt it. This is the greatest experience there is to feel oneness and love, and just so beautiful. And I would not feel it if I wasn't making love. You feel it for your children without a doubt, but then when they grow up and they go, you don't feel it as much. You feel the responsibility, you care about them, but not the ecstasy of loving sexual communion, where you actually make love. And that causes you to, overlook the mistakes. It causes you to not have complaints. It causes you to very quickly resolve differences. You don't have problems when you're having great sex. It's like that little fun story I talked about. I had all these complaints about my wife. I made love, they're all gone. And that's the blessing of men. If a woman has a lot of complaints, you can't just get naked and get in bed with her. She says, forget it. But a man's different. These are different realities that we can understand our gender differences. So understanding gender differences is essential right now if we're going to have society grow where families can stay together. Do you want your children to grow up and go to school and that's their only role models, is the most dysfunctional child on the playground? Bullies? That's what's happening. Girls are becoming bullies. Boys are bullies. Boys are weak. All these addictions that are happening. So many conditions are happening today. 4 times as many suicides in males as females. Twice as many girls now are graduating from college than males. The males are falling behind. The bottom line, I wrote a whole book on what parents can do, but ultimately what that boy needs is a father figure and a mother who loves the father. This is what's missing in the world today. And so what happens is we have so much polarizing going on. Nobody can hear differences. What's happening in the whole government with the politics, people hate each other if you're not of the same political belief. That's war is going on all the time because we don't have love. And love grows. We can make love by having a commitment to a relationship, having these relationship skills so we can open our hearts, embrace the differences with forgiveness, with understanding, with empathy, with hearing another person's point of view. And that's what's missing in the world. So to what I see, making love starts in the bedroom. Peace in the world starts with peace at home.
100%. Beautiful. John, you got another call coming.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I thoroughly appreciate it. I thoroughly, deeply appreciate like the years of experience and knowledge that you've gone through to get us to this point. I appreciate you being willing to share it so like openly and with so much passion. That's like my favorite part. Thank you for saying yes and 12 times during the process of the show.
Yes,
That was
and
awesome.
it's the best phrase. Yes, and it stops all arguments, you know? Yes,
Exactly.
and.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. But yeah, I just want to express my thorough appreciation, not just for this conversation, but all the experience and knowledge and, deep diving that you've done to bring us to this conversation. And that's pretty much all I have to say to wrap us up. Christina, do you have anything you want to hit?
Thank you so much, John. We're gonna we'll edit this and include this, and I want to put it back in the gallery view. I actually had taken myself show self view. I took myself out of it. So thank you for your time today, and we'll share the edit with you. And it's good to now make this contact with you because WeDeepen, our live events are virtual events, but they're taking place they're interactive, I'll say. So people can come and ask questions and be part of the experience. And I'd love to make an invite for you to join us at a live one soon.
That'd be great. Also, I like Zoom has a function now where you can get into little groups. You can bring people together and discuss what I just said or something like that. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and you're leading workshops too?
Well, not in person. I do it on Zoom.
You're doing them on Zoom.
Every Thursday, I do Facebook 3 hours.
Okay, cool. I'm going to look into that, and then I'll message you with some ideas that we might have to use you and your genius with WeDeepen and through the WeDeepen community and network that we're building.
That sounds delightful. I appreciate that so much. Hey guys, I'll talk to you later.